Does your financial advisor take the time to really listen to you? Is your financial strategy personalized to you and your family? Will your financial advisor be there as your life and financial situation change? Hi, I'm Jerry Mangona, your Edward Jones financial advisor. I live here in Corktown, just a few blocks from the Daily Detroit studios, and when we work together, we'll focus on what's important to you. We'll use an established process to create a personalized financial strategy backed by the advice, tools, and resources to help you reach your goals. And we'll partner together to help your strategy stay on track. Contact me toll-free today at 866-975-8655. Again, that's 866-975-8655. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. It's Thursday, May 30th, 2024, when you're listening to this. I am Jer Stays, coming to you from the porch of the Grand Hotel because, well, there was a band playing near the studio, and we couldn't record with that, Devon O'Reilly.
No, we couldn't, but I think it worked in our favor because I don't know where you're listening from, but it is gorgeous up on Mackinac Island, and this is probably the most unique setting we've recorded in. I'm literally talking to you, staring at a giant waving American flag with the Mighty Mac Bridge underneath and the Straits of Mackinac in my view. This is perfection. This is pure Mackinac right here.
God bless America and God bless Mackinac.
Put it in a commercial. Get whoever's doing the voiceover. It was Tim Allen, is it Jeff Daniels now? This is a pure Michigan moment for sure.
And I personally hope that there's enough background where you could hear maybe a bird or two. Like, you know, here's one thing about Mackinac. We're going to get into some serious stories, and I apologize to start kind of light because we are going to get into a couple serious stories. But I got to tell you, Shazam for Birds, otherwise known as the Merlin Bird app, you can actually just turn your phone on and be like, these are the birds around. And up here on Mackinac Island, it is wild because there's all these birds I have never heard before.
We're gonna get horse clops, birds. We might hear a freighter. I mean, who knows? Let's see what we can collect here in our episode.
Well, we're gonna talk about a lot of things, but I think first we need to start with the kind of heaviest news. We've been following this Detroit Riverfront Conservancy story, and there's a new disturbing development according to the Detroit News. This is fresh as we're recording this, but you're hearing this in the morning. We now have a number for the alleged theft. The nonprofit fears that up to $40 million could have been embezzled from the fund. That would actually be among the biggest scams in Detroit history. The FBI, as we've talked about, has been brought in. This is feeling like we're starting to get into damage control mode with all of this stuff. Also, some curveballs with this. Turns out some of that money could have been invested in black developers. And kind of like, so if the FBI tries to claw that money back, it could actually bring some businesses down that are doing projects in the city of Detroit. It is a crazy thing. CFO William Smith is on leave. Also, according to multiple reports, it looks like Mark Wallace, the CEO of the Riverfront Conservancy, his tenure is coming to an end, it looks like, because this happened on his watch. To be clear, this alleged wrongdoing, he is not alleged of being involved in. I think before we get into anything, there's a lot alleged here. I also think we need to let the process play out a bit because it's going to be a big investigation. But this number, man, and this is why this is a big investigation and why we I think we have thoughts, but we also need to temper that with, I think there's more.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be very measured in this, honestly, Jared, just because I know, the Riverfront Conservancy is just such a venerable organization and a group and the work they've done. PBS documented it. And it's just that number. You're right. You're right. We heard the story and we said, I think when you and I first talked about it, we're like, well, let's see what we're talking about here.
I thought maybe it was like, did he get himself a house?
Accounting error. Well, an accounting error. 40 grand, maybe. Okay. In the grand scheme of things. Okay.
Well, when the FBI showed up, I knew it wasn't 40 grand, right?
Okay. Well, no, I guess I was being naive. But seeing the 40 million number, God, if that's even remotely accurate, then yes, you are dealing with some large scale fraudulent activities, and it's just a shame. I don't know. It's a sad story. I don't know how else to say it, Jerry. Like if it was a lesser organization or something else, I would maybe be dancing on their downfall or kind of admonishing them. But I'm down on this. I hate to see it because I love what the Riverfront has become and what it is becoming. So this is just, for me, it's just a sad story.
And I hope that it gets kind of understood what happened, because this is a huge black eye for the city. I mean, this is a situation where you've got a city that has had a lot of financial challenges. People have a lot of questions and a lot of fears. And even though you have so many great people who have put their personal money on the line, Matt Cullen and others, it's still like, man, $40 million. That's all of the money. That's the same amount of money that the Ralph C. Wilson Foundation put in for West Riverfront Park. I mean, it's just... yeah, and there's talk about raising a fund to backstop some of those developers who are getting, because this is obviously a complex thing, right?
Right. I think that's the other thing we want to point out is, like, again, we don't know everything, but can you and I kind of safely say it's like, if you're thinking about this, like what actually happened, it's not like William Smith just lined his pockets with $40 million. It's much more complex than that.
Yeah, and so it's going to take some time to unpack. And I just know that just a few people I've talked to off the record, there's a lot of stunned here now, to be honest, because you've got a lot of leaders, a lot of people who are within 100 yards of us who put money into this thing.
I went through stunned, and now I'm sad, and I don't know where this cycle of emotions is going to take me. It probably depends on what comes out next.
Yeah, for sure. If you've got thoughts, dailydetroit@gmail.com. Now, Dan Gilbert hit the stage at the policy conference, and basically, there wasn't a lot of news broken. There's a couple points I want to bring out. One though, he said he's going to give all the money away.
How can you not love hearing that? It sounds like the Dan Gilbert Foundation, or the Gilbert Family Foundation, is essentially going to be funded for eternity, because he's just going to keep pumping into that. I mean, and
most of that money is going to be put into Detroit and that area.
And he said most is going to be put in Detroit. And we like to kind of get into like the number side of that. Well, let's look. What is Dan Gilbert valued at? I think it's somewhere in the realm of $25 billion.
Doing a hard Google right now.
Somewhere in the realm of $25 billion, give or take. Even if you say it sounds like
$28 billion.
$28 billion. So even if you say, okay, he'll take care of the kids. You each get $500 million, some ridiculous sum. We're talking about literally like the Gilbert Family Foundation could be one of the largest philanthropic organizations in the country, and in fact probably the world, if what Dan is saying is true, and that I'm going to give it all away. We're talking about $20 billion as a low estimate, because his wealth is probably going to increase. So this is incredible. This is great news. If he is serious about it, and I believe that he is, man, Jared, do you understand? I mean, you understand what a backstop that'd be. Like, he could, that foundation could fund so many things going forward.
I mean, it could be a real basis for a truly equitable comeback for Detroit in so many ways. I had an interview that's going to air on the show later with Force Detroit. It was just part of one of Mike Duggan's, one of the programs Mayor Mike Duggan worked with to reduce violence in neighborhoods. They were able to bring gun violence. They were able to bring gun violence down 70%. And he was talking. He's like, yeah, it'd be great to have, 15, if we could do that, we could do this, across the city, like 15, 20 million. I'm like, these are the kind of numbers that we can do. Yeah. Right? Like, we're going to fund this, 15 million. What? Of course.
Right. And we're talking about, I mean, Matt, again, seriously, I don't want to get too excited because just, it's one comment, but everything we talk about here, the big stuff we talk about, transit. I mean, what could if the Gilbert Family Foundation would say, we're laying down $2 to $3 billion for transit. Well, you could really do some stuff.
I guess we would have the G line.
We would have the G line, and we can name it whatever you want, Dan. Name it after your wife, your kids. Who cares at that point? Yeah. So I mean,
he named regional transit as one of the things that he wants to have.
But that's
in there.
the stuff we're talking about. I mean, I don't want to. Again, I'm trying to contain my excitement and not get too far ahead of myself. But I mean, that's what we're talking about. If he's really going to give it all away, we're talking about $1 billion+ investments in the big things, education, transportation, talent. Like, this is just on a whole, just very exciting news. I'm glad we can talk about it after the sad news of the previous topic, but this is just really exciting news.
I also think we got a view into his time scale. So like the Hudson's project, the Hudson's Tower, he said, it doesn't make money.
It's not going to make money.
And it's not going to make money in 30 years. And I think it's really important to talk about that in context of that versus, say, something like the District Detroit, which just hasn't gotten off the ground yet.
Don't we always talk about this? I do feel like Jared's a lot of, like, I want to say validation for us and the stuff we talk about, but that's what we've been telling people about the development projects. We've said, Dan's not trying to make a dime on the Hudson site, and he knows it. It's semi-philanthropic, I'll call it. He may make back the money, but he's not doing that to make money, and the numbers don't show that he actually will. So
I think that's for a hard thing for a lot of people in the public, though, to be fair, to wrap their head around. The idea, and we're not used to it in this town, I think a lot of bigger cities have multiple Dans. Like, Dan is very, very wealthy, but there are other cities in this nation where Dan is one of a few. Here, Dan is the big cat. And I think to people it's like, well, why is he going to put all this money in, or what's the deal or whatever? And there is a point where you're just playing on legacy mode.
Yeah, and I think that's what the conversation with him and Dennis Archer Jr. kind of ended on was, what do you want your lasting legacy? And I think that he's definitely thinking about his legacy. I mean, frankly, he's still a young man.
60s, I want to say, early
60s. So he potentially has a lot of time left to build that legacy, but he's also done so much in the last 25 years of his company that he's probably thinking legacy mode. And I know that I've mentioned this on the show before. That's what you want. You want local, billionaires thinking legacy mode, because that means they are going to do things that don't necessarily make dollars and cents. They
Today.
just are, they just mean that we have a better future, a better city, a better region. And if that's the mode that Dan's in, man, I will give him the flowers. You can write in about Devon as a Dan Slappy, but if this all comes to fruition, we're going to be talking about Gilbert back projects as long as you and I are doing the show.
Bold speculation or bold takes. First $1 billion goes. Devon O'Reilly, what would you do with it? Said, here's the first $1 billion, Devon.
I would do transit. I would do rapid light rail. I think you build out the queue line. That's what I would do.
To like a proper
And
speed.
everybody-
like all the bells and whistles.
All the bells and whistles, but just make it go far enough. Make it go to, let's say, Birmingham. Go to Birmingham on one route. Go to Ann Arbor on another route. Go to St. Clair Shores on another route. Something along those lines. Go out to Grand River, out to like Farmington Hills. Like,
Are you trying to short out Macomb County?
build
here?
out the spokes.
You said just
They
said
don't
St.
want
Clair-
it. They said they don't want it. No, but
And we're going to talk about Macomb County in a second.
St. Clair Shores. I'm building it to St. Clair Shores. They can get their. They can get their.
Get on there.
They can get on there. But no, that's what I would do, because I think it just addresses so much. And then the haters, the people who are, you can say, oh, we did it. Here's your regional transit blueprint. We built you $2 billion in rail. Now what?
Okay, so since you took transit, I'm going to suggest a perpetual sinking fund for Detroit Public Schools buildings.
That'd be another one. I mean,
So if people don't know, a sinking fund is how you can fund things in the state of Michigan. Like, you can't give money to a school district in Michigan to be like for teacher salaries. You have to do it for infrastructure, for other things. So what you could do is endow a foundation. This works in places like Grosse Pointe or other places with wealth, and say, okay, you can give money to this foundation, and this is how we build the new pool or the new gym or the new science lab. We go to the foundation for that. And so what if all of the building maintenance and upgrades for Detroit Public Schools were off of their books, so that money could then be used for education?
Because ultimately, you're right. I totally agree with you. You put it into the infrastructure because that is important. It's a mental. You go to school in a nice new building. There's something to that rather than
properly taking care of old building.
Right.
All that. Yeah.
There's something to that. But then you're right. You can't do it directly. But of course, you would address paying teachers. That's how you got to pay teachers to teach at these schools, quality teachers, and that's how you kind of round about that. So great idea. If we can get that, hey, that $2 billion or $3 billion to do that, done.
What do you do with Dan Gilbert's first $1 billion? DailyDetroit@gmail.com. No wrong answers, and I'd love to hear your bold speculation, everybody. Because, I mean, it seems like a throwaway line to some, but I think it is a big deal, because I think, when life happens with him, and, he's looking way better.
Yeah.
Like, so much improvement. I think, I know that as somebody who went through a very difficult life event recently, it changes your whole outlook and everything. There is a thing where when you look at something and you're like, oh, I could have died, like really died, like not like Hangover 2 died, the movie, but like I could have died. Then you're like, you know what? I'm shooting my shot, man.
Yeah, I think he's serious, and I think it also bears mentioning, because he mentioned her. There is a absolute star of the city and the region, Laura Graneman, who's running the Gilbert Foundation. She is fantastic. She's young. She's going to be around a while, and so I feel like not only do you have the promise of Dan's money, but you have a amazing steward in Laura who really gets how to kind of invest this money, where to put this money. So it's teed up for some great years ahead in philanthropy and hopefully moving the needle on the really big things that you and I are always bringing up on the show.
We should definitely have Laura on. I think we need to reach out. That'd be a good thing to have.
I don't know if Laura listens, but I bet someone who knows Laura listens. So yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do a little Macomb County political news. It seems like Mark Hackel is playing footsie with running for governor again.
Okay.
Because he does. So
I'm going to
put. Okay, let's preface this conversation. You start. Because you're going to say you love Mark.
I'm gonna keep it light. I know, because people think I'm always down in Macomb County, but Mark's team, and maybe it's fresh because I always see him up here, but I see him in other places.
And I see him on the way up here because that man gets billboards.
He understands politics. He's got a really great team around him. The Macomb team is just is really, really fun. They're really, really good at their job. So I do appreciate the heck out of what they do. So Mark, in the position that he sits, it's a very safe position. But also we think about legacy, right? Mark could be the executive as long as Mark wants to. I would imagine when you get to a certain point, you're like, all right, I can keep doing this, or I can, he's flirted with doing something bigger, a lot. And at some point, you just do it. So this tracks to me. Now, I don't know if he'll go through with it because of, and I don't know, Jer, how much pontificating you want to get into. But
I mean, I'll pontificate away.
Then why
say whatever.
Why are we here on the porch? But
right.
I think because of the way things shake out, I don't think there's a lane for him, because I think that we know who is going to be the front runner if he so chooses to put his name into the ring. And I don't think that Mark would run against this person, because this person would be a juggernaut in the field.
That person is Mike Duggan, right? Like
you said it.
People need to get used to the idea that Mike Duggan is going to run for governor.
People need to get used to that if Mike Duggan runs for governor, he's going to win, because I don't even. I mean,
he takes a big bunch of the moderate vote.
I don't anticipate a close race. I'm honest to God. This would be like a Whitmer-Dixon. We're talking 58-42 against any Republican challenger. I mean, he's like you said, he's a juggernaut. He can pull. He can pull progressives. He can pull middle of the road. He can pull even the people we may not like, who just look at him as the white guy who fixed Detroit. Like, he'll even get those people. So, yeah, man, he would be a juggernaut if he runs.
Another thing he mentioned was that he's not going to be supporting. We're talking about Mark Hackel now. That he's not going to be supporting Joe Biden for president, which has kind of angered some local Democrats, because ostensibly, that's a great word, by the way. He's been a Democrat, but and I will say this, in that I feel like he's kind of like one of those birds that like pretends like they're a reed and kind of blows around in the wind wherever it is. He's like very good at feeling the winds, and being in Macomb County, he knows that he needs to.
He knows his constituency, and that's what's important. You have so many folks in Macomb, and Macomb stands out nationally because it's the Reagan Democrats, right?
Or whatever it is.
The Reagan Republicans, the folks who were blue collar, who were Democrats in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and then slowly kind of became more conservative. And so you have those kind of confused people, not say in a bad way, but people who are like, wait a second, I was a Democrat, but now I'm feeling like I'm more of a Republican. And he knows his constituency, and he has a lot of those people. And so, you know what? It's a smart move to adapt to your constituency.
For sure. And I mean, I don't know how much of this is a visibility play or whatever, but here's the thing fundamentally, and I will say this about Mark Hackel as a candidate for statewide office. When you're a county executive, there's a lot of things you can fly under the radar about. But I don't feel like I know how he feels about women's rights. I don't know how he feels about LGBTQ+. I don't know how he feels about Palestine and Israel. Like, you become a statewide office, and I know that I mentioned an international thing, but when you become a statewide office holder, there are a whole bunch of issues that frankly matter, right? And that are important. Like, what your stand is on women's issues matters, and it is going to be a litmus test. You can't sit there being like, well, maybe. You just can't do that when you're running for governor. He has to take firm steps.
And I think he knows that, and that's where it gets a little tricky and a little potentially sticky, because you're right. You have to, at that point, you're not just playing to your constituency, you have to play to a broader demographic. And some of the issues that his constituency supports, speaking broadly, are things that are not necessarily popular statewide. So you have to reconcile that. And he may, or he may not. But again, I want to be clear. I do not believe that that Mark is going to get into a race that, you said the name.
Yes, if somebody else is in it. And here's the thing, that somebody else, I know where they stand on those issues, right? Like, they are a down the line Democrat, blue Democrat. They're not a far left Democrat, but those.
He's a Biden Democrat. I mean,
he's a Biden.
Doug is a Biden Democrat through and through.
100%. So, interesting stuff here up at the island. I mean, every year it's kind of great to be up here and just talk with you and just get an idea of what leaders are thinking about up here. I'm going to be up here for another day, so I'd love to hear people's thoughts.
Can we make it?
Can we survive? I would love to know people's thoughts. dailydetroit@gmail.com of things to look into. There's a variety of topics. And the thing is that, I saw online some of the online chatter. I want to wrap here. some of the online chatter was, well, what about this issue? What about this issue? I think we've built a pretty strong case with previous episodes, and then also just my experience up here. There's a lot of groundwork that needs to happen on a variety of topics right now that is sitting in like the state Senate or all these other things that need to shift before we can talk about like, so transit is one of those things, right? Do we make tweaks? Do we make tweaks on how we run things, about funding it? Like the whole idea of, property tax for sale, like all these things need to sit in the legislature. So we're kind of in like I don't want to say a holding pattern, but part of this up here is working out some of those machinations.
Yes, absolutely. Because you're right, a lot of stuff is mucked up in, we've got like big stuff like child tax credit is something I've finally paid attention to. And that's kind of just being held up in all the bureaucracy and BS that's going on in Lansing and nationally. But stuff like that, it's like, I wish we could say there's like all sorts of updates, but some of this stuff moves really, really slow. But at least up here, conversations do happen that do move the needle on that. I promise anybody who hasn't been, who listens, work does get done up here. Important conversations do happen. It's a lot of fun and bourbon, but a lot of important conversations do happen, and the needle does move, and it usually moves in the right direction.
Well, with that, I think we will end the show for today. We're going to have a bunch of content coming here from the conference over the next few weeks, kind of spaced, and it's not just going to be like an all-conference show, but like once a week, we'll throw in some different conversations and things. We've had some great ones that I cannot wait to share with you. Devon O'Reilly, always great to share a drink with you on the porch.
Jer, it's so great to be here. Like I said, this is such a lovely atmosphere. I'm going to go ahead and tease. After we're done here, we're going to take a fantastic picture with the Mighty Mac and the American flag behind us, and you can look for that on social media.
Well, thank you so much for listening and supporting Your Daily Detroit. We could not do it without you. Thank you to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/Daily Detroit. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
I'm Devon O'Reilly.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit when we get back there.